The Goldilocks zone. Now, establishment astronomy, they want you to believe that you have a hot young star in the center, and they call them planets, but they're actually older stars, orbiting around the young hot star. So you have what's called the Goldilocks zone. Now, the Goldilocks zone was invented in the 1950s. The concept, I believe, was where if it was too close, if a planet, meaning older star, was too close to the young hot star, water would dissipate away. So you had an area where it was too close. So let's say this is too close. All right, this is where water would dissipate away. It would get ripped away from the surface of the object, and no life would form. It would boil away. And then there was the middle ground. Let's say this area was just right, meaning this is where water could remain as a liquid, and it wouldn't burn away as well. It wouldn't freeze. So if we went past this, in this area out here, okay, the water would freeze. And basically, that's what it really amounts to. You have the hot star heating the surface of the older star, keeping the liquid, or the water either liquid, burning it away, or the water would freeze. Okay? There's only one major issue with this, and not only that, but it's been falsified already. The Goldilocks zone has already been falsified. Keep in mind, this was invented in the 1950s. The way it was falsified is, okay, you have, here's the surface of the ocean on Earth, okay? And when you go deep, down to the very bottom of the ocean floor, there reaches a point to where there's no light or heat from the sun. That means, according to the Goldilocks zone, this water down here should not be liquid because there is no heat from a hot young star liquefying it. And you see where I'm going with this. We found life at the very bottom of the ocean, okay, where there is no heat. As well, we know that water is, or H2O, is liquid in the very depths of the earth. And the reason why that is that when water freezes, it expands. And when it liquefies, it contracts. So if you have enough pressure on a specific area of the water, it will never freeze. It will always remain liquid. As long as that pressure is really, really high, it will remain liquid no matter how far down you go. And that's a very incredible property of water. And it also means that the Goldilocks zone is bogus. Because if you have an ocean world, so you have a hot young star, and you have, you know, the Goldilocks zone, which is this central area right here where the other star is orbiting. If you have an ocean world, say, out here, orbiting, okay, establishment science wants you to believe that this object will be ices. It will be an ice-covered world, okay? But as you saw in my last example, if those oceans are deep on this object, okay, say you have Earth, and our deepest ocean, here's the sea floor. This is the surface. And here's the atmosphere. Now, depending on how deep that ocean is, this is Earth. If you had an ocean world, let's say you had the surface up here, and the sea floor was like down here, okay? You have all that depth of water, meaning it doesn't matter what's going on up here, okay? This could be a solid chunk of ice. Okay? Completely frozen over on the surface. Yeah, true, possible. But what's really going on here is that this object is very, very far away from the heat of a hot, young host star. But it's still water. There's still liquid water all throughout this area right here, okay? Because of the immense pressure. That means life is probably in here. Lots of it. Little creatures swimming around. I really wanted to go over this because when we visit other worlds, and yes, we are going to visit other worlds other than the ones inside of our solar system, if we see ice on the surface, it doesn't mean that it's ice throughout, okay? If we see ice on the surface, it means that there could be water underneath, okay? And it also means that if we see an object that is not orbiting close to its host star, meaning it's far away. Let me draw the other diagram again. Okay. Here's the hot young star. Okay. If we have an object that's orbiting way out in Egypt somewhere, here would be an analog Earth. Okay. The way the heck out here, it can still have life on it. So the habitable zone, that little area that Earth somehow orbits around, is, well, it's outdated. It's 1950s theorizing. We know better now. The habitable zone, I don't know if you can tell where I'm going with this, the real habitable zone, the real Goldilocks zone, is inside the star itself. Okay? Now, I'm just going to draw this a little bit bigger. You have your atmosphere, you have the surface, and then you have well, the layered core and all that stuff. Here, let me draw that a little bit bigger. That's not a good enough example. Okay. You have the surface, okay, and you have deep oceans, and you have the sea floor, and you have the atmosphere. Ooh. Okay. Now, if you go too far high up in the atmosphere, there's a little oxygen, meaning no life. If you go too deep, sure, you can go to the bottom of the sea, but if you go to where there's magma, it's too hot, too much pressure. That means the Goldilocks zone is actually from here down to here. or a little bit further. That's the real Goldilocks zone, okay? But what establishment astronomy doesn't realize is that it means we have a lot more life-hosting stars out there than what they can come to terms with. When the Earth was young, you had your surface, and this top line work is in the atmosphere. Okay? And a very thick atmosphere. Very, very, very thick. Because it was still being ionized and destroyed by the radiation of a hot young host star. As it ages, what happens is the atmosphere will dissipate. And this is the surface, and this is the atmosphere. And the atmosphere became a lot thinner because of the ionizing radiation of a hot young host star. This also means that the pressure was a little higher, and chances were more likely that Earth, before this stage, was actually a water world and was completely covered in deep oceans, which means the atmosphere was even a lot thicker than that when it was hosting life. So you had the really thick atmosphere, you had the diminishing where dinosaurs were living, and then eventually the hot ionizing radiation from the sun diminished the atmosphere, and now we have a very thin, O2 rich and into nitrogen rich atmosphere. Basically, that really sums up the Goldilocks zone. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.